Cyclone Nation, what better way to kick off the 2025 college football season than cheering on your Cyclones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin, Ireland? Whether it's a quick trip to Dublin for the game, a multi-city adventure throughout the Irish countryside, or premium game day hospitality, there is a package for you. Visit cyclones2ireland.com for information on official travel and hospitality packages. That's Cyclones, the number 2, Ireland.com.
Welcome in to another victory edition of Kickin' It. Winning's more fun.
We are so back, baby.
Winning is more fun than losing. I'm Jeff Woody here. We are brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. I'm with, what's it? Steve
Balderdash, yes.
Steve Balderdash. Mikey Smithson.
Mm-hmm.
Happy National Jeff Woody Day to all those that celebrate.
Is it the Oklahoma State?
It is. The day that we're recording this.
Neat. That's fun. I liked a tweet that said that earlier today, but then I forgot entirely about it until now. So I was in 4th grade. Cool.
FYI.
I was in, that would have been my 3rd year. I'd have been in 16th grade. It'd be 15th if we're not counting kindergarten as one, because then that throws the numbers off.
Yeah.
I'd be in 15th grade then, which is, it's not for nothing.
Yeah.
We're brought to you by Kelderman Manufacturing. Aiden Wyatt's the one that was just talking about how he's a child, still is. Kelderman.com for any of your needs. Really, just if you need something that's, I don't know, bigger, unique, metal, fancy, automotive related, agricultural related.
Not even automotive, just metal.
Metal, just anything.
Yeah. Maybe not a grill in your mouth though. We'll see.
Look, again, we still need if you can get a grill and a grill and a grill, just 3 grills, then that feels like Kelderman's missing a market. Yeah. The triple grill market. Iowa State beats Cincinnati 34-17. This was there is so much to take away from this game, because the feeling of the game and the reality of the game afterwards, there are 2 very different existences depending on which bubble you're living in. Whether you go by the end of the game, looking back at the whole thing, or the feelings that you experienced in it, you have 2 very different takes on what the game is. What were your takes? Which camp were you living in? More in the feel the swing in the middle of it, or wait until it finishes and then look at it afterwards?
This game to me felt like a game that was early on in the season. The guys looked like they were loose, having fun, like you saw early on in the season. Where I had the utmost confidence in the team, and I felt like they're not going to lose to anybody. It looked like they turned, I don't know if they had like a guys only meeting, but it looked like they could have had a players only meeting. Basically said, hey, we still have a lot to play for. Let's quit dicking around here and just go out and play ball. Yeah, that was actually
Williams had his dad on the field, and he was kind of just spending the day watching the game with his.
Oh, he had a meat fest. What he had,
just much meat. But he was spending time with his dad. So I did the halftime show and the post-game show. Aiden and I were, again, sitting next to each other in the box, a bunch of elitists up there.
But time out. Before you go on, could I sit in there for the K-State game?
Nope.
Like, what's a guy got to do to sit in the press box?
You don't want to know.
I guess only one caveat. Can I bring a peanut butter and jelly beer into the press box?
Depends on how good at smuggling you are.
I'll put it in my Stanley.
You probably could if you want to smuggle it in there, but...
Well... I would need a clear...
I feel like that would be the only time that you'd be allowed in there, is that one time. And then people would smell.
I bring a water bottle in with me every game.
It's full of
I've
heat.
never been questioned.
But clear. It's got to be clear, right?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm
if you got a press pass,
I'm good.
You have to carry like a laptop.
Yeah, make sure
you don't have the clear bag policy doesn't apply.
Make sure you edit this out, Aiden, so that when I'm smuggling my beers, I'm
smart.
Smart. But we were sitting next to each other, and as actually you mentioning like the guys having fun, there was one time where I was watching. It felt like the middle of the second quarter when they got it was either a 4th down stop or it was like a 3rd down stop. That's what it was. They got a big first down play. Stuffed on Cincinnati did big first down play. Iowa State stuffed them on 2nd down, stuffed them on 3rd down. It was like a quarterback sneak they did. And after that moment, you had 11 dudes on defense that were just jumping up, celebrating, like totally actually cutting it loose. And I think it was a tie game. Like it wasn't like Iowa State had separated by that point because it was still in the first half. But I looked down and we were both talking about that's the team that you had seen early in the year. It was a combination of playing looser, playing more confidently, and not caring as much about being perfect. You know, like the whole don't aim it, throw it thing that a pitcher will have, where if I don't throw this curveball perfect and hit the lower left side of the strike zone, this is going to, and then you try and aim it, and then all of a sudden it doesn't spin as much, you pull it or whatever, and then that's the one that gets hit. Offenses and defenses in football, you can do the same thing. Even if you're not a quarterback throwing something specifically, if you're like, if I don't fit this perfect, or if I don't make this tackle perfect, or all that kind of stuff.
Even being a kicker, you think, oh, I have to place it right here. I got to be perfect. And it's just, you want to be able to go up there and just not think and just crush it.
Yeah. Just trust the training. You fail to the level of your systems. Just go hit it. And it felt like this was the first time really since, I don't know, the UCF, end of the fourth quarter, where Iowa State had felt like the team that we saw earlier in the year.
I agree.
A lot of what helps that is there's 3 guys that played this week that didn't play last week. Malik Verdun played like a series against Kansas, played almost the entire game.
Huge on that punch out too.
That was silly. That was a overhand right.
That was awesome.
And then Dom Orange had a whale of a game.
Maybe his best for sure this year, I would say.
Yeah, for sure this year. I mean, especially at the end of the first half, he made all 3 tackles on that series when Cincinnati had a chance to go down and get a field goal or whatever. They're up 10-7. If they were to drive down and score a touchdown and it's 17-7, like, oh God, this is not good at halftime. Dom Orange makes 2 TFLs, forces a punt, shank the piss out of the punt, and then Iowa State gets field goal to end the half, more or less. And
already dog.
Big kicks.
But he's got big nuts.
Rocco has big nuts too. But so having Verdun back, Orange back, and then Will McLaughlin.
Okay, I had said last week that he's not going to play. I was like, I don't care what Campbell says. I don't know what's going on.
Just take it.
I had heard, because he did have surgery, I had heard he was going to be done for the year. Because back surgery is tough to recover from. So
it just anybody that comes back, it's a gift.
Campbell just bought himself like 3 or 4 more years of, if he says something, we might have to believe it.
Well, yeah, because he did say McLaughlin of that bunch is going to be the closest one coming back, which I think they knew. I mean, okay, he was putting breadcrumbs out there of, if someone's going to come back, which for the record, I'm not counting Berzini. I think Berzini will be back. I don't think those other guys are. I think they had more substantial injuries, and so they probably won't be back.
And also another thing about it is, so this is they only have 3 regular season games left.
2.
Now 2. Well, I was just saying, including that one, then it would be, he hasn't played to this point. So you have those 3 and then a conference championship game. And if you win that one and you play a 5th one, then you would have, don't take the red shirt. You made a playoffs. Like, sweet. Play it as long as you can. That's worth the expenditure of a year. But if you have a maximum of 4 games, or if you have 4 games, you can just use that as a red shirt anyway and still play. So like having him, if he was good enough to go last week, you sort of have this like ace in the hole that you could potentially use a full red shirt and still get the best out of Will McLaughlin at the end of the year. So it feels like it's not an accident that he came back this week with 3 regular season games and 1 for sure postseason game minimum, potentially more. But again, if you have 5 games left in the year, that means you have Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State, Big 12 championship, playoff. So like, cool. That fine. Take that. And if you go, let's say you go win Cincinnati, Utah, Kansas State, and then you lose the Big 12 championship game, you're playing the Alamo Bowl or something like that, then just don't play him in that one and you still claim the red shirt, and there you go. Like, there's a lot good that can happen with him in there. But the biggest thing about it with Verdun and
before you went, he had said in post game he had this game circled, so he wanted
because you want to play Tyson Veit. Yeah. Because Veit, I think, recruited him and coached him. Obviously,
a lot of love for Veit too. I saw a lot of guys stuck around afterwards and he hugged all the guys too. So it's pretty cool.
But thinking about like the actual on the field, so like Verdun being back means that Bo doesn't have to feel like he has to do everything as far as tackling from the safety position. So Bo can just be a safety. He can just do Bo's job. Having Orange back, you lose Singleton, which that's not good.
Yeah, I don't know how hurt he's going to be. Hopefully he can come back sooner than later.
But you get Orange back in there, and he is the best physical defensive lineman that Iowa State has. So you have a defensive line that you can trust, a set of safeties that you can trust, and those 3 safeties played almost the whole game. Like, Jamison Patton didn't play much. 19 didn't play much.
Deshaun James, I don't really see him.
13 didn't really play much.
No.
They might have played a few snaps, but those three safeties were playing pretty much the entire game. But then Will McLaughlin being inserted at the linebacker position does so much for the defense. Not just because he's him, adding another person in there that knows what they're doing, even if he's not on the field, means that he can communicate on the sideline with whoever's not in and say, hey, when we did this, this is what we need to do. And in times when he is in, Rylan Barnes had the least amount of snaps, I think, in the last 4 or 5 weeks. What that allows Rylan Barnes to do is sit next to a coach or sit next to a player like a Brazina, if he's not in there. And then you can go, hey, remember when we talked about they trade the tight end and we need to fit one gap over or whatever it is. You can take those reps from the sideline. You don't have to take them in the fire of the field, because the difficulty that Iowa State had with their linebackers and being so thin and so young is when you screw up, they can't pull you for that next year and next game or series. They can't pull you for the next series to give you a chance to get your feet back underneath you and say, oh, that's what you meant. Got it. I didn't see that before. You don't have that. Like against Kansas, they have an onslaught going, well, tough shit, get back out there. Hope you can figure it out as you go. So having McLaughlin back makes a big difference in the depth and the experience. There was a couple plays when one of the running backs or the quarterback busted through, and it was either Verdun or McLaughlin that made a tackle, and it would have been a 30 more yards plus if they hadn't. So Verdun being in, Orange being back, and McLaughlin being in drastically changes the confidence of the defense.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that McLaughlin, he looked rusty, but he looked like he was flying around. Obviously he's fresh. He hasn't played all year. I don't think he's played all year. So he looked fresh. Good to see him out there. And I think he'll continue to get better. Obviously the more reps he gets, because like I said, he's been out all year. Also Sadowski had a pretty good game. Yeah. And Jacob Ellis, he played quite a bit.
I would say Sadowski played okay. He improved drastically throughout the game.
He had one or two big plays. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, go and get it then, Jack.
There's a couple plays that were not great, but that's what you expect from young linebackers. He's a true sophomore, right?
Yes, he is.
You're going to have...
Who hasn't played a ton this year.
Yeah, you're going to have a few mistakes. And so I'm going through a thing that I like to do is look at the drive chart, because it tells a better story of the game than the cumulative statistics. Because in the cumulative statistics, if you have a 99-yard drive that ends in a field goal, a 99-yard drive that ends in a field goal, and a 99-yard drive that ends in a field goal. Again, crazy situation, probably never happened, but then you'd have 297 yards of offense, and you're like, wow, they've got 300 yards of offense. What a great game. But it doesn't really, and then you go 50 total yards for the rest of the game after that. Man, they've got 350 yards. They should be up. Well, no, they just had a few good drives, and then the rest of the game was trash, because you can only score either on drives or on a punt return, kick return. There's no other way to score.
It sounds like you're watching an Iowa football game.
It's bad, and it's just going to get worse. So when you look at So when you look at the drive chart, the first few drives for both teams, other than the touchdown drive that Iowa State had, is where the feelings of this sucks, we're all dying feeling comes. Fire everyone, bench whatever.
So not gonna lie, I didn't watch the first half. I was out to eat with my wife, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law for her birthday. So I got home in the middle of halftime, and that's when I texted you guys and said, hey, I just cracked up peanut butter and jelly beer. I expect a lot of scoring for us and not a whole lot of scoring for Cincinnati.
And you did.
So that's what I'm saying. If I get in the press box, I will sneak in a beer or two.
So if you look at the drive chart for Cincinnati, they had 12 drives. One of them was a kneel down to end the half. They went 10 plays, 75 yards, touchdown right out of the gate. Oh God, our pets' heads are falling off. Mm-hmm. Next drive, 4 plays, 4 yards, punt. Next drive, 8 plays, 59 yards, field goal. Then if you follow the rest of those drives, and Aiden's got them pulled up on the screen for those that are on YouTube, 3 plays, 7 yards, punt. 6 plays, 7 yards, punt. 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. Kneel down. Next drive was the last time they actually had a drive that was of any real significance. Was 8 plays, 62 yards, fumble. That was the one that Verdun punched out. Then 4 plays, 18 yards, punt. They had a touchdown that was off the fumble, started in plus territory, that they had to do a third and forever quarterback run to be able to get that one out. Then 3 plays, negative 10 yards, punt, End of game. So they only scored on 3 drives, and they only had 3 drives that had, or 4 drives that had 6 plays or more. And they only had, of those, 2 of them were really substantial. So like Iowa State's defense actually played pretty well. And you look at the overall statistics and you go, oh God, they gave up 250 yards rushing. In the second half, they gave up 18 passing yards.
Only like 68 passing yards on the game, I think.
And if you look at the on passing downs, between the holding calls and I don't know if there was any sacks, but like between holding calls and false starts and whatever, I bet on passing downs, Cincinnati was net negative in the second half, meaning if it was 3rd and forever, unless they ran the ball, they lost yards. So Iowa State's defense actually played okay, and it was the first time that had happened. Now let's flip it to look at the drive chart for Iowa State.
Well, Satterfield had also said too, he's like, they were just dropping 8 and they were daring us to pass, and so we wouldn't, so we'd run. He's like, we fell right into it. He's like, and then you got down. He goes, we played right into their game plan. He goes, that's how Iowa State wins, is they get up, they force you to want to pass, and then they drop back, and you're like, oh, there's no one there, I'm going to run, and they keep everything in front of you. He's like, they got us. We got out-coached.
So Aiden's got the total or the team stats by quarter as far as total yards, and it was fairly balanced. But when you look at the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, they had a 38-yard drive that meant nothing at the very end of the game. That ended in they ran the ball 5 times and they were trying to come back from 3 scores. Didn't work. In the 3rd quarter, they had one of their long drives resulted in a fumble. So 62 of those 67 yards came on a drive that produced 0 points. Like, all in all, Iowa State's defense played a good game. You look at the statistics and you go, man, again, they gave up 250 yards rushing. Cool. If that's all Cincinnati's going to do, then take it. Then, like I said, let's flip it over to Iowa State's drive chart. They started in a way that scared everybody because it wasn't as dominant as you wanted. And Iowa State was down 10-7 at one point. So they go 6 plays, punt, then 5-play touchdown drive, 4-play punt, 3 and out, punt, 4-play punt. Then after that, they scored on every drive except the Carson Hansen fumble. So they scored on 5 of their last 6 drives, and drives of 6 plays, 9 plays, 9 plays, 15 plays, and 7 plays. So when you look at Iowa State's drive chart, they had the ball 11 times. They scored on 6 of them, and they fumbled on the other one that was in between there that they could have scored on potentially 7 out of 11 drives. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, all in all, that's pretty good. You can't really be mad necessarily when you look at it in totality. So like being a victim of the moment of saying like, you go punt, field goal, everything sucks. We're horrible. This is awful. Just relax. The game ended up a lot better than what the feeling of it was at halftime.
Yeah, like I said, this game reminded me of a game early on in the season where Iowa State would get up 2 scores and then just kind of sleeper hold you. You know, early on in the season too, close games, be at halftime and we're like, okay, well, we're gonna make adjustments at half. We'll be fine. That's exactly what they did. I'd said last week too, I hope that Haycock busts out like the 4 down lineman or do something different because this is the perfect time to do it versus Veit, who knows the defense, who is the architecture of the defense with
architecturator.
So they didn't. Glad they didn't. They just got back to doing what they do, but also got some guys healthy. So yeah, I hope. Like I said, I don't know how bad Singleton's injury is. Hopefully he's not out for a while. But having Dom Orange back was huge. One thing I will say too that I love that Cincinnati did. I don't know how that would work for Iowa State. Obviously, I'm not a defensive guy. Couldn't really figure out plays. That's why I was a kicker. So on defense, they had their DN spread out really wide. Mm-hmm. And then when the ball was snapped, they'd have their DNs just sprint, like full sprint. And then once they got to the tackles, they were like a full sprint and would just bull rush them. And there were a few times that Jalen Travis and Tyler Miller kind of, got back on their heels. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love that they just like unleashed them. I don't know. Again, I'm not a defensive guy, but I was like, that's kind of cool because you spread them out super wide. You could really get gashed. You could really get gashed for a run. But if you know it's a pass, I kind of like that aggressiveness. It
works and it doesn't work at the same time because it's as long as you can maintain rush integrity, then it works. And so like the Chiefs-Bills game, which Chiefs lost. I'm so sorry. I feel so terrible. Oh, darn it. But Chiefs-Bills the other day, like when you're the biggest play in that game was Josh Allen. Did you watch that game?
No.
Awesome. So Josh Allen scored. They're up by 3, 2 or 3.
I was
up by 2.
I was checking on my B's.
Up by 2, 4th and 2 from like the 20 something.
And they run a quarterback run. And with anything with the quarterback, you cannot give any space in it. And so whether it's Mahomes scrambling, which he did plenty of, Allen scrambling, which we did plenty of, but you have to maintain rush integrity in that the pocket has to be like a consistent U shape. If anybody leaves the space that they're supposed to be, then you can kind of pop through. And the problem with playing like really, really wide defensive ends is if you have so much momentum coming at one of the offensive linemen, if the offensive lineman's able to get a shoulder of you, like you're already heading kind of sideways.
Or just Ole.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't if I was an offensive lineman.
Ole and stick your foot out.
But you can get really knocked off kilter pretty easily there. One thing I did want to, I would say, like, I don't want to say everything's sunshine and rainbows about the game. I would say it only had 24 rushing yards in the first half.
That's not good.
Not great. Now, why was that happening? One was just blocking wasn't great at times. Like there were times when they just flat out whiffed. Corleone's a good player.
Yeah, he is. Having him out, I think he may end up come back the second half. He got hurt. I know
He didn't play. I don't think he played the back half. I mean,
that's a big dude.
He's a good player.
Yeah, he's big.
But having him out is nice for Iowa State's rushing effectiveness. But in the first half, they just didn't block all that well. There were times when they missed, but also how Cincinnati was playing is you could do it 5,000 different ways. But the general feeling was that double team 9, double team 13, everybody else stop the run. I don't care if anybody else catches a pass, which is why Gabe Burkle, game of his life.
Yeah, he had a good game.
You have Eskelsen.
Steve-O had a good game.
Steve-O had a good game. Eskelsen got a couple big third down catches because they're not thinking about him at all. They're looking at 9 and looking at 13.
He's going to be a dog in future
I think
years.
so too. But you have with that defense, you don't know how they're going to attack you. And for the first couple drives, they couldn't figure that out. So in a 3-3-5, this is Cincinnati's defense. They only gave up, I think, 10 first downs to West Virginia all last week. Iowa State had 21 of them. So they did a really good job eventually, but they had to figure out this Cincinnati defense is good. They had to figure out what Cincinnati was doing. And it was that every second and third level player, so like their version of Bo Freeler was.
What do you mean by second and third level?
Second and third level. First level is lineman or anyone you put on the line of scrimmage. So if you put a linebacker who's going to blitz and you put him like right up between a couple defensive linemen, people right on the line of scrimmage, that's the first level. The next group is the second level, which is anybody like 5-ish yards off the ball. Third level is then anybody beyond or outside of that. So corners, safeties, really deep linebacker for some weird set. But they're second and third level players, which in this 3-3-5 defense, there's 6 of them. There's 3 safeties and 3 linebackers. So it's the majority of the defense is second and third level players. Those second and third level players, anytime they saw run action, which is offensive linemen doing run things, tight ends doing run things, James Neal wearing number 93 coming in as a tight end.
I saw it. I was like, who is that?
They don't have any more tight ends that can block.
I thought that was...
Who else is going to block?
Oh, yeah, because...
Tyler Moore's hurt.
No, but wasn't...
Ben Bramer's hurt.
Wasn't Singleton, wasn't he 93?
No, he was 50. Well, I don't know if he was before.
Isaiah Lee was 93. Rest in peace.
Isaiah Lee, he's not dead. He's
not dead. He got booted, though.
Yep. But James Neal is wearing number 93, playing tight end because they have no one else that can block. So if he's in there and you have or other run action, anything that indicates that it's run, second and third level players screaming down to stop the run. And if they're late to go out and cover Gabe Burkle, that's fine. I don't care. Throw it to him.
Time out. Why was he wearing 93? Why couldn't he just wear his normal jersey?
Because he needs to be an eligible receiver to line up where he's lined up, unless you have to continually report that you are, hey, I'm eligible.
93 is an eligible number, but 75 isn't?
Correct. Any number between 50 and 79 are the only numbers that are ineligible. Anything, that's why JJ Watt could go in and catch touchdown passes because he's wearing number 99. Yeah. So anything 80 on up or 49 or lower are all eligibles. So him wearing 93 means that, hey, look at this big sumbitch, but also can catch a pass.
I know that Mauser listens, so I hope that there is a
pass.
A play in there for a fat man touchdown.
Fat guy touchdowns. I love fat guy touchdowns.
Come on now.
But so anytime there's run action, Cincinnati's second and third level players screaming downhill. if they have a pass responsibility like a Gabe Burkle or a Carson Brown or whatever, I don't care. That's a secondary priority. Double cover 13, double cover 9. Your primary responsibility, if you're not one of those guys, sprint down and play the run. If you're late out to anybody else, I don't care. After Iowa State figured that out is when they scored on 5 out of 6 drives. The only one they didn't is when someone hit a helmet perfectly on Carson Hansen and he fumbled. I don't know if they would have scored a touchdown on that drive as the game was going. Probably would have had some version of a successful drive. So like once they figured out what was going on, other guys stepped up and this offense was able to put 34 points on the board and do what you expect them to do.
Yeah, I think it was just a really beautiful game plan too. And I love seeing Jalen Noel talk his shit. He told number 8, I think it was, for Cincy, he said, "Get your weight up, bitch."
He did. He was actually doing the bench press.
Yeah.
Right in front. It was
in his face. And you've seen that camera angle of him where he catches the ball and he's looking at the guy and he like kind of does his little hurdle.
And trucked him.
Yeah. And you can just say he's got the look in his eyes like what the Kansas State guy was saying to me that one time on the kickoff, "I'm coming for you, motherfucker." That's what was going on in Jalen Noel's head as he was approaching number 8. He said, "I see this little guy, he needs to get his weight up. I'm going to truck him." And that's why he gave him the too small gesture. Love it.
That I've been in that situation-ish before.
Same.
That little hiccup move is to see if you can get an edge on him. So like rather than if he slows down with that little kind of the David Montgomery like stutter step, is you're going to see if you can get him to slow down just a bit, and then instead of hitting him head on, I can get him a stiff arm or like I can drop my shoulder and kind of squirt by on the other side. But when he didn't bite on it, after that little giddy up. All right, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Are you up for this?
I'm going to be Marshawn Lynch and run through your face.
And, good on the guy for hanging on. That's, and then he like tried to mush him as he stood up, and that's why he did like the too small thing. And I think like a couple plays later, he tapped himself out.
Why wouldn't you?
I think he did. It might have been a safety wearing number 9.
I think he's
8 or 9 tapped.
I think that, Noel, obviously it's hindsight. I think Noel, he wanted to truck him and just make a statement. He probably could have gave him a little razzmatazz and then done a little spin move. And gotten by him and scored. But you know what? I'll take the truck. I'll take the truck stick.
It was, all in all, by the end of the game, I think it felt like what Iowa State had been for the first 7 weeks of the year. And what they didn't get in the Texas Tech, really, I mean, UCF, I would also say this kind of the same thing. Like the UCF, Texas Tech, Kansas, that 3-game series or 3-game stretch, it was an Iowa State team that was making so many more mistakes.
They were playing tied butthole out there.
They for sure were. And now penalties wise,
they still had more than usual. They were averaging about 4 or 5 prior to Texas Tech, I think.
Let me find penalties. They had 7 penalties for 40 yards.
That's still more than what they normally would do.
Cincinnati had 13.
Yeah, they had like 6 false starts, like in consecutive possessions, multiple false starts in the same possessions too.
Yeah, and
they looked really undisciplined. They almost snapped it over a 6'7" punter's head.
Him catching that at all was wild.
I was like, "Oh, what's Culberson doing back there?"
Can we talk about the fake punt?
The fake punt.
How about the fake punt?
The fake punt, Reggie fake, the fake punt. Let's Reggie fake punt first,
okay,
and then we'll talk about the fake punt. So the regular fake punt, that is such like Rhodes had to be salivating.
Oh God, he was so erect. He was hard. He was rock hard.
Because we had the same thing. Like every week we had sometimes had 2 fakes in, and
I would make the fakes, Jeff. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I think you said you drew them up, but the fake field goals, but also fake punts. Did you drop fake punts?
We did fake punts, fake field goals, and kickoffs. Woo.
So that's
what we would do on Sundays. We'd go to Coach Rhodes' office, we'd dump out some sand and say, okay, no, not literally, but we'd watch the film and we'd look for little intricacies of, okay, this guy, as soon as the ball snapped, his head's turned, or this guy has no discipline, he's always going that way. We always look for little stuff like that, so we can try to, okay, if we're gonna run between the guard and the tackle, boop, right there, snap it to the outback like they did. I'm sure they saw that, the guys for Cincinnati were if you're looking at it, were going to Iowa State's right, so they knew. Whoever the tight end was, okay, I just need to shade and block this guy here. And if there's another guy on the outside, block him there. There's the lane. And then the 2 gunners are going to go with, or the 2, whatever blockers are going to go with the gunner.
Yeah. So they,
perfectly executed.
And we would always have that in practice, and you'd always run it. And if Gmo or Guy or whoever came up with it.
I mean, it wasn't just me. It was
the special teams unit.
Yeah, but I was always
specialists.
I was always trying to do crazy shit. And a lot of times Coach Rhodes would be like, Yeah, I like that.
Because we would run, whether it was, I mean, that's the easiest fake to run, is the snap it to the up back and run in one of the directions that's short on numbers and or short on discipline.
I'm surprised that Cincinnati didn't pick that up, because the long snapper was not where he was holding the ball was not straight in front of his head. It was definitely like 11 o'clock. Like you could tell this guy, something's going on here. This snap is cocked off to the left.
I feel like you since Iowa State doesn't run fake field goal / fake punts often, that it's not like in your brain of being like, this is a thing I need to watch out for.
I think the last time they ran a fake was the fake field goal they ran last year versus Cincinnati, at Cincinnati.
Great.
Chase Contreras had like a 12-yard run or something.
Yeah, almost scored.
Great. But yeah, like you'd practice it was it Thursday? We'd install it on Mondays. No, Mondays were off. Tuesdays. We installed on Tuesday and then practice it again on Thursday. So you practice it on Tuesday and Thursday, depending on whatever's in, and it was always just green. Like the new fake was always called green, and it was green and white. I think.
Don't know.
I think if we had two fakes, because sometimes there would be a fake that you'd want to run against a coverage look or a return look, and then another fake you want to run towards a pass block look. Like I don't know if we ever ran it, but we had so many screens to the gunners, because if there's a block look and they're bringing like 13 dudes to try and block the punt and nobody really pays attention to the gunners, and if they put that on film, you just literally snap it to the punter and everybody comes, just throw it right over their heads and it's right there. So like we would practice all the time. The fact they actually ran it, I'm sure if it's the same as our mechanism, was green, and then whoever the up back was, maybe it's Steve-O, was the one that has the chance to check it out.
Has he always been an up back? I don't
know, probably.
Okay.
But he would have if the look isn't there, you have a kill the play thing. Like and it's always really simple, because especially if he's playing, like if he's in on the third down play, then the guys running on the field have to like, hey, green, 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 green. So he has to have like a pretty easy check in his head. Like if there's 3 guys to the left side, can't run it. If there's 2 guys to the left side, run it. So if he doesn't like it, you go red 28, and you just kick red. But if he just goes green 28, like I'm sure at that point when Campbell's on the sideline, I wonder if he covered his mouth to hide a little wry smile.
He smiled like after on social media, he smiled afterward.
Yeah, just a little as a half.
Can you play us, Aiden, or no? So that blonde girl right there, you can see her just off to the right of the screen. She is like a nutritionist for the team. She got in his face and said something like,
"Great call,
let's go," or something.
I thought it was great call.
Yeah, she got in his face. I was like, "Who is this?"
And then Steve-O gets to run down the field, leading rusher at that moment. But now, Aiden,
time out. So while we're talking about fakes, the best fake that I was like, oh, coach, Coach Rhodes, let's try this, that we never ran. You have to be on the left hash.
Okay.
So
and we're normal punt look, which is a guard tackle.
This is field goal.
Oh, field goal. Okay.
Field goal. Yeah. So,
and we never ran overload, right?
What do you mean by that?
Meaning that it was guard, center, or snapper, and then guard, tackle, tight end, wing on both sides. Yes,
we would. So if we were in the left hash, we would overload to one of the sides. Right hash overload to one of the sides.
So then on to the bigger part of the field, it would go center, guard, tackle, tight end,
yes,
wing.
And so, but if we were in the left hash, we wouldn't overload, because my sophomore year we ran an option where.
Is that against you and I?
Yes, where we did 2 steps, keel pops up, boop, reverse rolls out, whatever, draws the defender, pitches it to me. Well, that same week we had a like an option off of the option where Hammerschmidt would be on the left, so that the tight end would not be heavy set. He'd be on the left side. He'd block, and then release, and basically run like a deep post, but kind of like a flag. So you're going to the pylon,
okay,
where Keel would roll out. He'd pitch it to me, and I would drop back and launch it to him. We had that installed, but we didn't ever run it in practice. We did run in practice, but Campbell's like, or Coach Rhodes was like, I think we may not need to do that. Like, what if you just pitch it and you just run? I was like, well, yeah,
that's probably easier.
Yeah. But I wanted to let it rip. But Jalen Noel, though, speaking of let it rip,
former quarterback.
Was he really?
Yeah, high school quarterback.
Oh wow, yeah, makes sense.
Okay, Aiden, we've danced around enough.
The fake punt.
Yeah, let's do it.
Fake punt.
I wish I could show it, but we can't
because usage rights. So it was the old rugby.
Yeah,
and
I think it was on their last punt where it was correct. Like You and me were talking about it in the press box, like, will they punt here? Will they go for it? They're down.
And it was 4th and 20.
Yeah.
They're 4th and
That's why
20
we were
from
like,
their own 15.
maybe it would be worth punting.
Because, they're down 3 scores. It's 4th and 20.
I think it was
from,
only 2 scores at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, because the Sama was the
that's
last
why
one.
we were like,
so they're down
okay,
2
they can punt and
scores.
get away with it.
Yeah, so they're down 2 scores on their own 15. And they had all their timeouts. And we're like, man, they're not going to go for it here. And they put their punter out and they start to rugby. Aiden,
But he wasn't
big shitty grin.
He was just kind of like trotting. Like he wasn't even, I was like, have a little behind if you're going to go. If you're going to go.
It's the fake punt.
The fake punt.
He was never going to go.
You
He
looked
only
to punt.
faked it.
You looked to punt. And then you looked to fake the fake punt.
He thought about faking.
Then you fake the punt. And then you fake the fake punt. Fake punt.
And then you punt.
And then you punt. And it worked.
Fake punt.
Fake
Dude had some
punt.
long levers though, 6'7".
Not great consistency wise.
He's been okay for him this year. He just a horrible game.
Yeah, bad game.
And someone asked Satterfield about that in post game. Like, oh, are you looking to change the punter? He's like, no, like he's been fine. He just
Bad day.
He's like the whole punt team in general played badly. He goes, how do you almost snap it over a 6'7" punter's head?
Well, they gave big returns. Special teams was good.
Yeah, that's how I would say it needs to win. Like you need to get wins. And I texted you guys about this when Jalen Jackson called a fair catch while he was catching the kickoff out of bounds.
Which I would like
you step out of bounds. It was going to bounds. You step out of bounds and catch it.
I would like to clarify this because I think Devin Gardner's gotten to be. I wouldn't say he's like good yet, but he used to be pretty bad. Now he's actually like on the better side of average. Like he is improving a lot. But one thing that is
who's better, him or King McClure?
Oh, way Devin Gardner. Way Devin Gardner.
I hope we don't get King at all this year.
Oh, we're gonna get King.
Yeah, shoot.
But you have so one of my slight beefs with broadcast crews generally, like other than I want to do it. Hey, Fox, ESPN, if you're listening, love it. Doesn't matter, no changes. But one of my beefs is that a lot of the people that do color are quarterbacks, and if you're a quarterback, you definitely never played special teams because they don't want to put a quarterback out there to like return a punt.
What about that one time where they trotted out Sam Richardson and Paul Rhodes last game? Do you remember this?
No,
I don't remember who the punter was at the time.
It would have been Holden Kramer.
They were number 12.
Yeah.
And so Paul Rhodes thought he could slide one by, trot out Sam Richardson as the punter. I don't think anything came out of it, but it was kind of funny. Like if you were an Iowa State fan, you're like, that's not the punter.
that's Sam Richardson. Yeah. But with a lot of the analysts or the color guy, having been a quarterback, they know offense really well because they had to play as a quarterback. You have to know the whole offense, and they know defenses really well because they have to know the defense that they're calling against. So like that's second nature. But they never watch special teams. They're not like if they're preparing to go on the field or they just left the field, they never actually watched or participated in special teams. So they have like a peripheral knowledge on how it is, but they never actually did it. So when Tim Brando, which at first blush, when you don't know what he's doing, that looks really stupid. But them saying like, what a mistake. Like, no. I would like to clarify this. As someone, again, kicking it, made my hay on special teams before getting on to be on offense. That was brilliant. And here's why.
The fair catch wasn't.
Yes, it was. So here's why that's a brilliant play.
I'm going to disagree with you after you say your point.
So when you're returning it on a field goal, on a kickoff, different than a punt. If you don't touch a punt, you automatically get the ball. If on a kickoff, you don't touch the ball and the other team recovers it, they get the ball. That's how onside kicks work. So you want to minimize the risk of any weird ball bounces of this odd shaped ball that you possibly can. So to minimize that risk, you want to catch everything that you can unless you are 1,000% certain that it will land out of bounds. Because it has to bounce before somebody can touch it. Like that's if for whatever reason, like that's why you'll never see. I mean, granted, you can fair catch it now, but like you'd never see someone just like blink and just like take a pitching wedge to a kickoff and just send it 50 yards up in the air so one of your guys can go get underneath it. Again, other than fair catches, because the ball has to hit the ground before it happens. You have to give the returning team a chance to catch it. That's why onside kicks always had to be spiked into the ground. So if the ball is in the air and you can catch it, then you want to catch it because that prevents any weird backspin, side bounce, whatever, from putting the ball in a position where the coverage team can take advantage of it. unless, again, you are 1,000% certain that it's going to go out of bounds. Where he was on the field, he started in the middle of the field. He is screaming as hard as he can, watching up at the ball. He has no periphery of where the sideline actually is. You can kind of feel where it is. When in doubt, throw your hand up in the air, because worst case scenario is the ball, it would have been in bounds and you catch it like 3 yards from the sideline because you're running 1,000 miles an hour to the sideline. You throw fair catch up in the air. You wouldn't be able to return it anyway. And you catch it, you get the ball in the 25. If you don't do that and you just think that the ball is going to go out of bounds and it lands with a lot of backspin and it spikes on the 10-yard line, and now once it hits the ground, shit's live. You can get trucked by somebody that's on the coverage team, and they are instructed to do that. So somebody's going to truck you and somebody else is going to try and recover the ball. So if you're not sure, catch it. If you want to avoid then getting out of bounds at the 10-yard line, fair catch it. Best case scenario is your foot hits out of bounds. You then become part of the out of bounds line. And then if you are out of bounds now, you're an ineligible player, you become like morphed into the sideline. Ball touches you, you being out of bounds, free kick out of bounds, you get the ball at the 35. So by calling fair catch, the worst case scenario that he can have, get the ball in the 25. Best case scenario, get the ball in the 35. If he doesn't call that, yeah, you get the ball goes out of bounds, and you, in this scenario, from us looking up like in the stands down at him, we go, oh, that ball's going to be out of bounds, you moron, just let it go. He doesn't know that. He can't see that. So his worst case scenario would be ball spikes up, they recover it. So like, it's a brilliant, don't take the driver out. Take the 3-wood, put it in the fairway. Like, that's what the best case scenario, it's worse, but the worst case scenario is so much better by doing that.
So my vantage point from watching on TV, it looked like it was a bang bang. He caught it, then stepped out of bounds. So in my opinion, what he should have done, and I guess I didn't realize he started in the middle of the field, so it would be harder to do if you're catching him on a full sprint. So if he say he was lined up on the right side.
Yeah, if he was lined up to that sideline.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm about to say would make more sense if he was lined up to the right. He should have, in my opinion,
put his foot on the sideline.
Yeah, I would have gone both feet. I mean, either way, both feet, and then leaned in and caught it. Because
once you touch it'd just be easier if you just put one foot on the sideline and catch it. Because once you get a foot on the sideline, again, you're a dead player.
Yeah.
So then you become part of the sideline.
Even if he has to, he has to stretch as far as he can to
put his foot there. Yeah.
5'4" frame can reach, and then still catch it out of bounds.
But yeah,
still catch it, then you'd be out of bounds and get a 35. That was my only gripe.
But yeah, it's really hard to do. Full speed, don't know where the sideline is. Minimize, again, it's put the driver back in the bag, take out your 3-wood. You're not going to hit it 315 yards now, but you're much more likely to get in the fairway. So your best case scenario, still pretty good. Get it on the 35-yard line. It's about the best case that you would have had otherwise. But your worst case scenario, you're not going to put it in the pond. You're going to probably keep it somewhere in the rough is your worst case.
I'd probably still put it in the pond.
Okay, that's still fair. But I would it's one of my beefs is that a lot of the color commentators are quarterbacks who don't really truly understand special teams all that well.
Did you see that one catch in the Purdue game?
No.
The receiver was wide open in the back of the end zone. And they've got
I did
with the pylon. He was behind it thinking he was in the corner of the end zone, and he caught it. And I think they're playing Ohio State.
No, somebody.
Yeah, whoever they're playing. The defender's like, you dummy. the guy was wide open. But he was chilling out of bounds.
But that's another reason why, this is one of if we're really deep dive in the minutia of stuff, why are the back lines of end zones thick white lines?
Well, I don't like how Purdue had it because it was
exactly, it was a thin white line,
but it was black. The end zone was black with a thin white line, and then black
outside of there,
and then thick white line.
And again, if you're running 1,000 miles an hour, you're watching the ball, you have to use your periphery to see what that is. That's why there's the right side, when you're driving on the road, there's the shoulder, the far shoulder has a solid line, and the lines you can pass are dotted. So you're not paying attention to it, but it kind of in your periphery, you can process it. So why end zone lines and sidelines tend to be thick white lines is because then you can periphery that a lot better. So it's a little dumb for him to do because you probably got to know that that's there, but also the field design, make your life way easier by not making it black, little white line, black, little white line, because then it's really, really hard when I'm looking out the corner of my eye to see where that actually is.
Yeah.
We got into field paint.
It's almost
What
like
a
they should do
detour,
like a warning track. Like put
Make it sand.
kitty litter around. Yeah. Put kitty litter around.
Oh man.
Should we move on to Utah?
That would be a dingus move.
It'd be a very dingus move, yeah. The guy out there looked like a dingus.
Yeah, he was.
I thought for a second
little bit
Jalen
dingus.
Jackson was a dingus, but he was not.
He was not a dingus. He was very undingusy.
Okay.
He was very, very intelligent play. That's a very smart play. CyclonesToIreland.com. You can look, you can book your trip, and still, if you want to, if you're not interested in doing anything modern right now, you can, before the Iowa State men's basketball and women's basketball kick off in earnest, and you want to go back and listen to a little bit of talk about going to Ireland, you can go back 2 weeks now. 2 weeks now? Yeah?
No.
Now?
No.
Yeah, 2 weeks now.
Okay.
Yeah. So go back and listen to us talk with the guy who started that. Aer Lingus College Football Classic, CyclonesToIreland.com.
It was a good interview too.
You did great. Aiden, you know what? You did great.
Thanks, man. We needed that today.
You were remote, Jeff, so
I was in Carolina. I was in a basement.
sounded a
Carolina.
little bit like you were talking through a russet potato, but it wasn't too bad.
It was
You should have heard it before we fixed his mic.
That's a good call, yeah.
it was bad. It was bad. It was very echoey. So like it was just in an insane asylum. That's definitely not where I was.
Yeah, no, been in there before. It's not very echoey in a sad sound. Can I tell you something though?
Nope.
I also,
we're moving on.
Nope. I want to thank Iowa Pork Producers for sponsoring the show as well too. Had myself some bacon over the weekend. My wife was like, "Oh, can you make breakfast for us?" I said, yeah, sure. I'm bacon and eggs and made some English muffins.
Ooh.
Oh, very nice. And made the thick cut bacon. And after
that's the good stuff.
After I made all I said, how many bacon? She goes, she goes, I actually don't want bacon. I said, great, more for me. I smashed 8 pieces of bacon.
8 pieces of bacon?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good in the mouth. That is okay. It's only okay in the rest of the system.
Well, it came out nicely the next day, so I'm not complaining. Nice and
Straight
tapered.
through.
Nice and tapered. So, on to Utah, if you'd like to talk about them. I like where we're getting them at. I don't know why they played Brandon Rose, was it? They played him.
He was a freshman, right?
No.
Or was he the kind of the non-Wilson guy?
Brandon Rose, he's a sophomore, but they played him versus BYU and he did fine. But then Isaac Wilson, played last game and he's gotten better. I'm honestly, I'm not too worried about Utah though. They haven't looked good. I think they've been kind of hurt with injuries as well too, hampered by the injuries as well too. I think their top receiver is Dorian Singer, who is a transfer from Arizona, then USC, now Utah. He's leading their team with the receiving, but their tight end has been pretty good. But I think he's hurt now too. Brant Queeth.
Queeth?
Yeah, maybe not actually. He played versus BYU, but the first few games early in the year, he had a really good. He had some really good games. I'm just kind of rambling, but
it's, to me, Utah is.
I'm not too worried about them, to be honest. It sucks playing. I would like to go to this game because I've always wanted to go to Salt Lake City, but they're not they don't really scare me. It's gonna be a hard game.
It's going to be physical. That's the thing. If Iowa State can match the physicality of Utah, which they have shown generally able to do, outside of the one thing that gives me I wouldn't say a little bit of fear, but like a thing that you need to that Iowa State needs to concern themselves with. They've given up a lot of rushing yards in the last few weeks.
Yes.
Utah will do the same thing, but I don't think they have the same passing capacity that Kansas did. They for sure don't have the same passing capacity that Kansas did. But I feel like it could be, and I don't think they don't have RJ Harvey like UCF, but similar-ish to like a Cincinnati. Cincinnati's quarterback can throw. They just didn't.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised by that. He's actually a pretty good quarterback.
It's going to be a thing to me that if they can slow down the running game in some aspect or completely shut down the passing game like they did against Cincinnati. They gave up 289 yards rushing to Cincinnati, but they gave up 68 yards passing. Like if you can do that, either shut down entirely the passing game or mitigate the running game to be in the 150 range, I think Iowa State's offense at this point, especially with Knoll and Higgins and now some other person, whether that's Burkle or Eskelsen or whoever.
Hopefully Bramer comes back. I don't know what's going on. I have to imagine he's going to come back for one of these two games.
One would hope. And but whoever the third potential option is. So if they have, I think Iowa State's offense will be able to do enough to then make it harder for Utah. Like if Iowa State gets up 2 scores, this thing's over, because that's when they can either bait you into running a ton of time off the clock by running the ball, or bait you into throwing, which is not going to be Utah's strong suit. But they need to be able to get to that position first.
Yes. And so one thing I was going to say is that if Iowa State gives up a touchdown on an opening drive, I don't like that, because being an away team, and I just don't want Utah to have any momentum. They're 4-6, so they're fight. They have to win the next 2 games to be bowl eligible. But their quarterback Isaac Wilson, he's been okay. Wow. He doesn't have a nose like the other Wilsons though. But he has 10 touchdowns to 11 picks. So he just threw 3 picks versus Colorado last week. Oh God, I didn't realize this. They've lost their last 4 games. Yeah. No, well, last 4 games that he's played in, actually. Anyways, I guess last 4 games, because he didn't play versus last 5 games because he didn't play versus BYU. They're really sputtering, but he's thrown an interception in every game except for versus Houston and versus Baylor. So I think, Iowa State has to get up. They have to get up on Utah to force them to pass.
If they do, I feel like if they get up a couple scores, then it could end up being like last year's BYU game. But if they don't, Utah's a physical team. Like Kyle Whittingham will never coach a team that is not super physical. If they don't, this game is going to be it could be a dogfight. Like if you're in a slugfest with Utah, they want to win this game 13-8. You know, like that's the kind of game they want to play. If you allow it to be that way by execution, by turnovers, by not running the ball like they need to, like not protecting Rocco, if you do that, they almost beat BYU. I mean, without that one where their AD ended up calling out an official. Always works. I think complaining publicly to officials, they're going to go, you know what? I'm sorry. You win.
Here's a letter.
You win. You know what? We were super wrong. You guys win. BYU, no win for you. Utah, you get a win.
We had that game won. Well, you didn't. You lost. Someone stole it from us. We didn't. You lost. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher in the last 4 games.
Neat.
Utah hasn't. So they had them versus Arizona State, which was 5 games ago.
But it's still a physical team. Like it's a team that I would expect to match Iowa State's physicality. I don't know if it'll match Iowa State's execution, and that's what's kind of incumbent upon Iowa State to execute better than Utah, as opposed to just matching them punch for punch.
Yeah, Micah Bernard is their leading rusher, and Isaac Wilson will run it, but he doesn't want to. He wants to pass it, and I just think him being a true freshman, he hasn't faced a defense. Yeah, I think they played Cincinnati already this year, but he hasn't faced the
secondary.
Secondary.
Right.
They didn't play Cincinnati this year actually. So he hasn't seen a secondary like Iowa State's before. So I think you heard Garrett Green was like, they baited me. They wanted me to do this, and I fell into the trap. Mm-hmm. I hope he's good. He's a true freshman though. So I hope that Iowa State will bait him into doing stuff that he'll then throw 2 or 3 picks. If Iowa State wins a turnover battle, I have zero doubt that Iowa State will win this game.
Yeah, it's just a matter of this is a game you must dot your I's, cross your T's. Don't let a team like Utah into the game, because if you do, they have a winning DNA. Like Kyle Whittingham, they've lost a lot in the row, but Kyle Whittingham has a winning DNA.
And again, they're fighting for Bolt, so they might do some crazy shit that we haven't seen before.
Right.
But I forgot what I was going to say. You go ahead.
But that's if you dot your I's and cross your T's, make sure everything's taken care of. I think Iowa State could make this a much like the Cincinnati game. Like by the time they scored 5 out of the last 6 drives, that type of thing could happen. If they get up 2 scores, if it gets to be 9 or more, then I think Iowa State, unless the next drive they get a touchdown or something like that to bring it back in. But if it gets to be a 9-point lead and Iowa State gets the ball back, that's when you go into boa constrictor mode. Defense starts to bait a young quarterback into throws they don't need to. So a lot of it is going to be game dependent. Like middle of the 3rd quarter is sort of where to me, it's like the buoy is either going to sink or float at that point for Utah, where if they're in it, they're going to keep fighting all the way until they're in it. If they're not, then Iowa State could play the game they want to play and come out with a win.
That's what I was going to say too. I think if the game is tied or Iowa State is down by 3, Iowa State's got in the bag. If Iowa State's up at halftime, it's over. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't want to say that much confidence. Just
I do.
anything is hard to pin down. But yeah, this is
They've been road dogs this year too. Iowa State's look good on the road this year.
Yeah, and everything. So this like thing about
Except for
matchups.
Kansas.
Everything that Kansas does well is things that Iowa State does. I know I was saying Kansas on purpose, but everything Kansas does well is what Iowa State defends poorly. Running quarterbacks, option stuff. Big play wide receivers that can draw coverage away from the middle of the field. All that stuff is what Iowa State struggles with. They don't struggle with conventional offenses that rely on a running back and checking down to tight ends and a quarterback that doesn't really like to scramble. That's what Iowa State does well against. And so it's not as bad of a matchup, or it's like looking matchup to matchup wise. Utah matches up not super favorably to Iowa State. Again, anything can happen, but I feel like if Iowa State, again, dots their I's and cross their T's, they win the game. The last thing I wanted to kind of get to, because it was sort of a fun activity and is fun asterisk, is
hidden yardage.
No, well, we do need to get hidden yardage. But so let's do hidden yardage, then we'll get to. I was going to do the tiebreakers and how you get there and all that kind of stuff. Hidden yardage.
I'll go first.
All right.
Iowa State plus 71.
Sounds a little calculated there, Grant.
I thought about sitting in my office today. I was on a call. I was like, you know what?
Sitting in my office with a plate of grilled bacon. Call a man what? See what we're shaking. All right. I'm going to go with Iowa State plus 80.
Iowa State plus 144.
Oh, really?
Yep. So Iowa State had 11 drives. They averaged starting on their own 36-yard line, which is really good.
Yeah,
so across 11, and they were trying to score on all of their drives. So you include all of their drives. Cincinnati, you just toss one of them out. They had 8 seconds left. So wherever that was, you don't count it. They're not trying to score. They're just trying to take a knee. So any yardage plus or minus from that, you just kind of throw out. So they then had 11 drives. So total yardage on that was something to the tune of like 369 special teams yards to like 250 special teams yards. So Iowa State soundly won special teams hidden yardage. Their average starting field position on their own 25, opening kickoff or whatever, when they got the ball back. Cincinnati's 39, their own 25, midfield, their own 35, at Cincinnati's 38, their own 24, their own 28, their own 21, their own 32, their own 29. So their worst starting field position was the 21-yard line.
Yeah, I forgot about that shanked punt.
And the Cincinnati
and a good return.
Cincinnati. So if Iowa State started in Cincinnati territory or at midfield 3 times, Cincinnati started in Iowa State anywhere past the 30-yard, their own 30-yard line once. So like just kicking the ball, covering it, and returning it were really good for Iowa State in that. So hidden yardage, Iowa State plus 144.
That's what I meant. I meant to say 71 times 2.
So then I did want to come back to one thing with the hidden yardage. Total yards in the game. Iowa State had 386 total yards. Cincinnati had 353 total yards. Whether you want to add hidden yards to Iowa State's total or subtract them from Cincinnati's,
let's subtract from Cincinnati.
That's honestly, that's what I feel like is a better indicator, because again, the way you describe hidden yards, if I start in the 40 and you start in the 20, you gain 20 yards. Congratulations, you're just where I'm already at. So those 20 yards didn't gain you anything. It's just digging you out of a hole.
Yep.
So if Iowa State won hidden yards by 144, the first 144 yards that Cincinnati would theoretically be gaining would just be digging them out of a starting field position hole.
You're a negative. Now you're at 0.
Right. So they 353 yards minus those 144 yards that don't really matter. They had 209 yards of advantaged offense that they would have gotten equivalent to Iowa State. So Iowa State won that total yardage by almost 200 yards if you include special teams into it. So like they played not a bad game.
That's what I'm saying. I wasn't very worried. I wasn't very worried the entire game. When I saw Jalen Knoll talking his shit, I was like, they're in for it.
So last thing is, I did want to get into the tiebreaker scenario, not so much to say like this team needs to win or this team needs to win, because there are so many situations that are perfectly reasonable.
I'll let you have at it.
It's not like, well, we need Houston to beat Arizona State and then a meteor to hit the Baylor campus to void that. It's like reasonable expectations. And I think you have the tweet, Aiden. So this is from Scott Reister, which is there's 3 scenarios that are the most straightforward that get Iowa State into the Big 12 title game, which at that point, there's no way they're going to be a playoff team as an at-large. They have to win the Big 12 in order to be in the playoff.
And you got to win both games.
So the starting assumption is that Iowa State wins both of their last two games.
Yes, sure.
At Utah, at home against Kansas State. Scenario number 1, Iowa State wins both games. Check. BYU and Colorado both lose in these upcoming weeks. So Arizona State plays BYU. Very important game. Kansas plays Colorado. Very important game and sneaky challenging game now with as well as Kansas is playing. They beat Iowa State and BYU in back-to-back weeks.
And they're playing Colorado at home.
And they're playing Colorado at Arrowhead.
Yeesh.
So BYU and Colorado both lose. And then Arizona State, whatever. Yeah, so that's it. So Iowa State wins twice. BYU and Colorado both lose. Iowa State's in. There we go. Scenario number 2. Colorado wins both their games. Iowa State wins both their games. BYU beats, this is to simplify scenario 2 and 3. If Iowa State wins both, Colorado wins both. Whoever wins the BYU Arizona State game, if they lose their next game, Iowa State's in. There's one scenario that's up there that's more straightforward that doesn't
Well, no, Arizona State would have to beat BYU, and then Arizona
would have to lose. Or scenario 2 is BYU beats Arizona State and then loses to Houston. So whoever wins the BYU Arizona State game, if they lose their next week, it doesn't matter. Yeah. As long as Iowa State wins both, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But another scenario that's not listed up there is if Iowa State wins both and Colorado loses to Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas.
Texas Tech also loses. Now, why are we bringing Texas Tech into this? I just was going to go over very briefly the actual tiebreaker protocol. And this is going to be just translating rules speak. So if there's 3 or more teams tied, you basically take like the pool of them and you go through this tiebreaker list, and whoever shows up on top, you then pop them up. And so if there's 3 teams tied and team A beat team B and C, then they're automatically they advance on, and then you just do a 2-team tiebreaker with the remaining team B and C, and then it goes back to the 2-team tiebreaker rules. So really, the 2-team tiebreaker rules are pretty much the same as the 3-team tiebreaker rules. You just settle them a little bit differently. So anyway, tiebreaker policy, because likely this is not going to be 1-loss team in first place, 2-loss team in second place, 3-loss team in third place, where it'd just be easy. You just take the conference records. There's likely going to be a tie at first or second for this that you have to use a determination. So if there's a head-to-head tiebreaker, again, the 3-team tiebreaker is more or less the same, head-to-head between the 2 teams. So if Iowa State and Colorado are tied, then they didn't play each other. That doesn't apply. Move to next tiebreaker B. Is the winning percentage against all common conference opponents amongst the tied teams. If Colorado loses to Kansas, they would have 7 common opponents. They would each have 2 losses to those common opponents. So their record amongst those 7 teams that they've both played is identical. You then move to tiebreaker number 3, or tiebreaker C. Is the winning percentage against the next highest placed common opponent in the standings. So you go in the list, team 1, team 2, team 3, and if they're tied, then if there's like 3 teams in third place, then what is your record against those teams? This is why we bring Texas Tech into this. If Texas Tech loses at all in the remaining 2 weeks,
and if they go to Oklahoma State, crazy shit could happen. Who knows? Yep. Gundy, that's kind of a tough place to play too. Don't think they'll lose there, but they could. Then they go
to West Virginia.
No, they host West Virginia.
Okay. But if Texas Tech is in that tiebreaker group, Colorado beat Texas Tech, and then whoever else would be reasonably in that I think Baylor would be one potential option. It's either a team that Colorado and Iowa State both beat or that they didn't play. So the fact that Colorado beat Texas Tech and Iowa State lost to Texas Tech, when you get to tiebreaker C, Colorado has the advantage over Iowa State, which is, you start really splitting hairs. So if Texas Tech loses, then it removes them from the standings. Tiebreaker D. We are really getting in the weeds here.
Oh my God, we go down to G. There's a coin toss.
There's a coin toss.
I know what I'm rooting for.
It's coin toss. So is the combined letter D, is the combined winning percentage in conference games of the conference opponents. Is your schedule better than someone else's schedule? If you beat the teams that you beat or you played have 64 wins, and the team that they your person you're getting compared with has 61 wins. You played a harder schedule, you get the advantage. Somehow we find our way down number E or letter E. You're not going to get there. Like there's no way you have identical records of opponents, but E. I just want to go through this because it gets to coin toss, which is bananas. So E is the total number of wins. So your non-conference then record comes into place. Total number of wins in a 12-game season. F is the highest ranking by Sports Source Analytics. I don't even know what that is. I don't know who that
Team
is,
rating
where that
metric.
is, but it's highest ranking by Sport Source Analytics, the team rating score metric, following the last weekend of regular season games. If for some reason you're still tied after that, which I don't know how you could even be tied 34th. I don't know how you can be tied. Then it goes to a coin toss. Can you imagine?
Where does the coin toss take place at?
Is it at a truck stop in West Texas with antagonistic high school coaches staring each other down?
Or is it a Zoom call?
I think you have to host this at a stadium and sell the damn thing out. In a world of commercialized everything, you got to make an event if there's a coin toss to decide.
It's like the Anchorman scene where the different stations show up. Go to Jerry's World and just in the middle of the field you've got 4 different teams. But then coin toss you got.
But yeah,
how does that
Or
work?
this is just a 2-team right now.
Okay.
No, this is multiple team.
But it's multi-team.
There's a multi-team coin toss.
multi-team coin
This is
toss.
the criteria we're on.
If there's a multi-team coin toss,
I don't even know how do you do that.
how do you do that? So
Is it just best of 7? You go around, everyone plays everyone.
Go down to letter
Double or nothing.
H. Rock,
Double or
paper,
nothing.
scissors.
It's rock, paper, scissors on 1, 2, 3 shoot. It's not rock, paper, show. It's rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You have to make sure you get that right. But it's like the multi-team one because somebody would have been sorted out by then, and then you do the thing on the rest of them. But can you imagine a fucking coin toss to determine who gets the Big 12 title game?
Letter I, 40-yard dash. Whoever wins between the head coaches in a 40-yard dash.
Letter J, whatever fan base drinks the most beer in a 24-hour sitting.
We are in
everyone
good shape,
involved. I don't
everybody.
care.
They should put those
In
on
good
there just for being,
If it's on a
coin
coin
toss is already
toss,
crazy enough.
what if it's best of a coin toss, but it's not just one coin toss, is it?
you
all the marbles.
You gotta sky that thing as high as you can.
Yeah, what's the
Well,
technique?
it's kind of funny because the Sports Source Analytics thing, they would have to all be the exact same number.
Right.
So the coin toss is kind of whatever.
Right,
We'll we'll totally flip a coin if it gets to that.
I just think it's the ranking by Sports Source. So it's not like it's a score. It's like if you, I guess they would have to be the same number because then you sort them 35th and 36th or whatever.
Yeah.
Letter L. I've got a number behind my back. Okay, you tell me what number it is, odd or even.
It's he who smelt it dealt it. That's the letter Q.
A rib eating contest.
The tiebreakers, could you imagine being in a meeting room determining these tiebreakers and just what they are? How do you rank them?
What if they do the old NCAA tournament bracket where they just pick the best mascot? I would say I'd take a chance in that.
Oh, they would win the Big 12 for sure.
Oh yeah. I don't even know if anyone would compete.
The only,
A lot of Cougars.
a lot of Cougars,
couple
Buffalo,
Well, a Sun
Wildcats.
Devil. As Mike Leach would say, what kind of powers does Sun Devil have?
It's true. What is a Sun Devil?
Can't outrun a cyclone though.
I mean,
But if it's a Sun Devil, that might win.
if mythical creatures do pretty well in that bracket.
Well, what kind of? I know
not-
horned
it's not-
frog is real. What kind of mythical powers they have?
It's not Long Beach State.
Beach.
Long Beach State, man.
Long live the beach.
damn it.
Long live the beach.
You got anything else as far as this?
No, the only thing is just don't concern yourselves too much with
just
it.
win, baby.
Just win, take care of it. And then if you're a fan, I think the easiest rooting interest is if Colorado loses, Texas Tech loses, boom, doesn't matter what else happens, you're good. But if Colorado wins, not all is lost. There's still some other stuff that could happen to get there. But just take
win.
care, just win.
Just beat Utah. We can take the next step from there.
Assumption A needs to happen before Assumption B really applies.
I want to give Luke Rosa a winner. I'm saying he's going to win this year. Update. Tyler Loop, kicker for Arizona, who just absolutely explodes balls, had a 62-yarder in their game this
Made it by ways.
God, just crushed. It was before the half, so he just hammered. So yeah, I think he's going to win the Grows. I hope he does. The kid is absolutely phenomenal. That's all I've got though, Jeff. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, Aiden, you got anything? All right. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners who are still listening. And as always, remember, adopt. Don't shop.